Last night was a terrible night for St. Louis.
We're just crying out.
There's no need to put people at risk.
I don't know what else to say. This is horrible.
For the moment, it appears to be calm across St. Louis, a far cry from the violence we saw 24 hours ago. Many stores are closed and boarded up in hopes of avoiding destruction and looting. Good evening, I'm Mike Bush.
And I'm Ann Allred. We are now 1 hour exactly into St. Louis City Mayor Lyda Krewson's 9 p.m. curfew that started today. Our Jenna Barnes is monitoring things for us, and she is live in the Central West End. Jenna.
Yes, Ann, and just to give you an idea of where we are in the Central West End, this is the intersection of Lindell and Euclid, where just in the last 15 minutes or so, police officers arrived and blocked off the road. We can see police cars for a couple of blocks, at least until Maryland and Euclid. I asked one officer why they were here, and he told me prevention. They got wind that something could possibly happen, and they wanted to get out ahead of it. Right now, though, we don't see any protesters or demonstrators or that kind of thing. Today, the police chief described how hard it was to protect businesses during the riot and how the curfew could help them.
Well, there's so many businesses.
That's a good thing. Yeah. Till this calms down, there's no need to put people at risk. So if they need encouragement to stay home, then there you go. It's a curfew. Stay home.
That was a business owner here in the Central West End. He owns the Barbecue Saloon, talking about how businesses here along Euclid have been struggling. Many of them have had to close because of the coronavirus. And with this curfew in place, they could lose more business. But you heard him there say it was worth it. The police chief had said it's hard to protect businesses when they have to protect themselves, when there are so many looters and so many businesses being threatened. So this curfew could give them the ability to be on the offensive instead of the defensive. In the Central West End, we've seen businesses boarded up, taking precautions, afraid that what happened last night could happen again. And as we want to take you back out here live, we just want to show you that while police are here for preventative measures, we do not see any protesters, and all is calm here in the Central West End. Of course, if that changes, we will bring you another update. For now, we're live in the Central West End. Jenna Barnes, 5 on your side.
Jenna, thank you. 55 businesses were damaged last night in downtown. Many of those business owners and employees, they were cleaning up today, like this 7-Eleven that was burned and looted last night. 5 on your side's Abby Larico have been talking to businesses about how they recover, and she is live.
Hey, Ann, I'm actually on Washington Avenue right now, where things are a little bit noisy as people come down and cruise Wash Ave. And you can see just a small handful of people who are holding up signs that say Black Lives Matter, wearing masks, and clearly defying that curfew that was instated for the city of St. Louis that we are 1 hour into. But besides that, things are pretty quiet down here. That includes a lot of businesses that have had to board up their windows that normally would rely on nightlife and people coming out in the evening like this. And since it's already been such a hard time for these small businesses, things like this might be too much for them to bear.
It's already hard enough that we had to go through this pandemic and try to survive. I really appreciate the community.
Ever since he bought the corner grocery store in the Bevo neighborhood where he grew up, people call him Johnny.
I love the people around here, and they've been supporting me, and that's what keeping me in the business.
So what happened here feels personal.
My heart was very, very broken.
It wasn't just his store or his neighborhood. From South City to North, more than 60 businesses were damaged Monday night. Pharmacies, nail salons, cell phone repair places, big box stores, mom and pop shops. Windows busted up, items tossed in and ripped from shelves and hangers.
If I saw these neighbors picked up grocery, chips and candy, I'll understand it's a pandemic. People do bad things. But when you're stealing tobacco in boxes, hookah pipes, it just doesn't make any sense.
At Johnny's, he says it started with 2 people breaking in for a couple $100 from the cash register.
When they left and the people around the area noticed that the alarm is ringing, there's no cops, they stormed the store,
stealing thousands of dollars in merchandise.
I don't think this had to do anything with a protest or anything.
Despite a hope this was done by outsiders, he thinks he recognizes people in the video as his neighbors.
Just when you think you're the nicest guy in the neighborhood.
And he worries when the smoke of riots and looting clears, so will the businesses that support the community, like his.
If I'm gone, what's going to happen to this area? And they got to think about it.
He says he doesn't want to have to keep the boards up for too long, like so many businesses have come out and put up here today, seeing everything that happened last night. But he says he might have to do that. However, he also adds that what does the city really look like when at night streets are empty and the windows, instead of really just clearly staying open, have to be covered up for security reasons. Reporting downtown, Abby Larico, 5 on your side.
Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt told me today he is partnering with the U.S. Attorney to hold the looters and vandals from last night accountable. Schmidt says George Floyd's death is tragic, but it is not okay to use the protests to destroy property and commit acts of violence.
So our office, the Attorney General's office, along with the U.S. attorneys, will be prosecuting these illegal rioters, these looters, people who are causing destruction. So we're sending a very clear message from federal law enforcement and state law enforcement that if you commit these acts, if you come to Missouri, you commit these acts, we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
Schmidt says in a civilized society, laws mean something, and it's his job to see that they are enforced.
Last night's chaos turned deadly, and police are looking for whomever shot and killed a retired St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department captain. 77-year-old David Dorn was found dead outside of Lee's Pawn and Jewelry Shop in North City overnight. The Ethical Society of Police says looters murdered him. Former St. Louis County Police Chief Tim Fitch calls Dorn a true public servant.
Integrity and the public service. That's what stands out for the Dave Dorn that I knew. Had a significant impact on many people in our community, and he's going to be greatly missed.
Dorn also served as police chief for Moline Acres. We're told he leaves behind a wife who is a city police sergeant. About 90 minutes ago, President Trump tweeted about Dorn, saying, "Our highest respect to the family of David Dorn, a great police captain from St. Louis, who was viciously shot and killed by despicable looters last night. We honor our police officers perhaps more than ever before. Thank you."
Thankfully, and thank God, they're alive. Can we make some sense out of this? Can we make some sense out of this? That's all I'm trying to say.
That's St. Louis Police Chief John Hayden. He did not hold back his emotions after 4 of his officers were shot last night. We're happy to report those 4 officers are recovering at home right now. Chief Hayden says the officers were standing off to the side of the police line downtown when they were shot. The St. Louis Regional Crime Commission is offering a reward of up to $100,000 in the case.
The president of the St. Louis Police Officers Association calls last night's violence unprecedented. Not during the Ferguson riots, not during the unrest in St. Louis following the acquittal of former officer Jason Stockley. Jay Schroeder says at one point he and several of his fellow officers had to stop making arrests to take cover.
And so we had about 20 policemen taking cover wherever they could. It was insane. And they were actively shooting. I've been a policeman almost 20 years total, and I've never seen this level of violence of policemen.
You can see more of our exclusive interview by going to the As Seen on TV section of KSDK.com or our app.
Those who were among the crowd say they do not want anyone to forget their message.
Yeah, our Morgan Young spoke with 2 protesters who took part in Monday's protests, and she joins us now in studio. Morgan?
Well, Mike and Ann, none of the protesters I spoke with today think that the damage, destruction, or violence that we just saw downtown last night is okay. Their message is that the anger and the hurt that led up to the protests is not new.
Freedom ain't free if you look like me. You see, it comes with a price, and that could be your life.
Marcellus Buckley wrote these words about how he feels as a black man. It's a trauma that sat at the root of his cause as he protested Monday night.
We don't even know if this is going to even affect or change anything. We're just crying out.
And it's a cry he says has only gotten deeper and louder with each generation left to shoulder the hurt. And while Monday's protests started peaceful, they didn't stay that way.
We are for people that want to speak out and voice their opinion, and you're trying to cause havoc. And, you know, a lot of us aren't for it. I witnessed a white guy, a group decided they were going to go and light some things on fire. When I saw the Molotov cocktail,
he stepped in to stop him.
He said, "We're trying to help you." And I looked at him, I said, "Trying to help us how? You're not going to be held accountable for your actions." we are.
But while Michael Brown Sr. and Buckley admit that not all of the black protesters are peaceful, he says the root of that often isn't the message of the protests, but a bolder, angrier generation that's fed up.
They are not scared. They're growing up with a whole different breed.
I do understand why it is happening because of outrage.
Brianna Eisenbrummer says it's not about a hate for law enforcement.
Everyone in my family are police officers or former police officers.
She says it's about years of ignored complaints, requests for equality being pushed aside, and the weight of feeling like you don't mean anything.
Feeling like my black skin or the person I am doesn't matter. It's hard.
So no, they're not saying this is okay.
I don't want it to come to this. I feel like it shouldn't have come to this.
They're saying things haven't been okay for a long time.
We feel like we're not heard and that people don't care what we think or how we feel. It's just a continuation of what's been happening.
It's a wound reopened and inflamed.
This is not my first and probably will not be my last protest.
Morgan Young.
You see, freedom ain't free if you look like me.
5 on your side.
The city of Ferguson is continuing their 8 p.m. curfew. The last 2 nights have been peaceful. The weekend was pretty violent. The mayor told me tonight that each night their focus is on protecting the police department because that building has really been the focus of rioters. And businesses nearby become collateral damage. Mayor Knowles said he has no doubt the recent violence in Ferguson was a coordinated, planned attack on the PD with incendiary devices and weapons.
After the failed attempts to burn down the police department, they started going up the street and trying to lure officers away from the police department by damaging businesses. And even 2 nights ago, they got a little further and further away from the police department in hopes of drawing people away. And then they would literally try to outflank the officers and come back to that department.
Every morning after protests, peaceful or violent, volunteers, they come out, they clean up. The city of Ferguson is also working to get $5,000 grants to damaged businesses to help with repair costs.
We continue to monitor the streets of St. Louis. A curfew is now in effect until 6 a.m. This is a live look over the Brentwood Promenade. You can see that there are police officers on hand, but it remains fairly calm at this hour.